Hi, everybody. Welcome to All Things Metaphysical podcast. I don't know what episode we're on anymore. We stopped counting. Today is 1/11/2023.
Yay.
So we're just going to go by dates now.
Sounds good.
Yeah. So, Kelly and I were talking earlier, and one of the things that I was saying is I feel like I'm in Groundhog Day, where every day I just keep getting more the same and more the same, and then they amp it up, and it's like no matter what I do, it turns out the same. Just was wondering if you felt that way or
I think everyone has kind of felt that way. And somebody is messing with our timelines, I think, and with our sense of time between the energy fluctuations
Mhm.
that have just been ridiculous and, the time slips that I've noticed.
Great. Now they're going to be singing the Time Warp from Rocky Horror
Goody,
Show.
goody,
And
goody.
you said
Rocky Horror
time
Picture.
because you said time slips, and they just were off and running with the
Yep.
Rocky Horror Picture Show. Let's do the Time Warp again. Hi, everybody watching us. Let us know if you have any questions or things you want to talk about. If you're a Facebook user, put your name in because usually, unless you've already done that and are familiar with StreamYard, other than that, it always says Facebook. So,
Yep.
so they're really going to town with singing, and I see them all doing the time warp, which now is making it worse because I just want to laugh.
Awesome. I know it will come as no surprise that I once was in a production of Rocky Horror Picture Show. So I'm
I didn't
familiar.
know that. So, yes, it kind of comes as a surprise. So, when will the loop change? I heard in about a week.
Yeah,
Things are going to start. We're going to start to come out of the loop in about a week.
yeah, that's what I heard as well.
So,
Yeah.
but yeah, it's been interesting. And the other thing that we, talked about ahead of time before we go off on tangents is free will, because we both know a lot of people who are facing a lot of medical challenges right now. And their free will is really coming into play as to whether they're going to stay or go or what they're going to do. And when you're really intuitive and feel that, it's a really interesting dynamic. I remember when my mom, was still on this side of the veil, and she would be getting close to go. So I'd call the ambulance and I'd be driving behind the ambulance. And I'm like, oh, it's okay to let go, mom. And then we get to the hospital and she's like, nope, not ready yet.
Yep.
So
Many people are doing that right now. What
it's
I'm hearing in my head is the clash: should I stay or should I go? So I, it's one of those kinds of days. It's just amazing to people that free will is such a huge thing
Mhm.
when it comes to transitioning. There are people that have been, nope, I'm going to stay for this holiday. Nope, for that birthday. Nope, for this anniversary. For a year now or more than a year now. And it's just, you kind of have to just let it go. Realize it isn't your journey, it's their journey. And if their free will wants to keep them alive and in pain, that's what they're going to do.
The hard part is I don't have a problem respecting the free will. The hard part for me is the emotional roller coaster it puts
Yeah.
me on.
Yeah.
Because like I get prepared because they're sort of making that decision and then they stop
Hmm.
and then they make it another couple weeks and then they're testing the waters again.
Yep.
I think that that's really difficult. Let's do the time warp again. No, I'm not doing the time warp again. But I do see them all still dancing on the other side doing it, saying, "Come on, just play." I'm like, "I'm in the middle of a podcast.
Hmm.
I am not going to stop and do
And
that."
do the time warp. Yeah. No, it's not that kind of podcast. Okay. Yeah.
But yeah, so we were talking earlier is today there's a lot of song titles again.
Yeah.
The other day we were, I was kept hearing "Up, Up, Away" in my beautiful balloon as I was raising frequencies, and as some people call it, leveling up. So they thought it was
Mhm.
really funny to sing the. I always hear the version by the Fifth Dimensions, "Up, Up, Away" in my
Oh,
beautiful
yeah.
balloon. So like, you guys are not funny, and they're like, "Yes, we are. We
Yeah.
make you laugh every time."
Yeah. That's something though that some people question their sanity about. I'm used to it. I've seen them my whole life. I've heard them my whole life. To me, it's perfectly normal. But when I have students who come in and they're just starting and they're saying, I woke up in the middle of the night and I swear I saw someone. I saw an angel, or I saw a guide, or I saw my grandmother who's been dead for 10 years, and you just have to go with it.
Hmm.
Really. You just have to go with it and realize you're changing and you're growing and your vibration is changing. And the higher your vibration becomes, the more you see
Hmm.
and the more you hear. And the next thing you know, you're going to be walking around with your very own mental soundtrack. And it can be quite lovely sometimes.
Somebody said Wind of Change by the Scorpions was the song I woke up singing in my head. So, yeah, there's just a lot going on. And again, music is a really easy way for them to manipulate songs. So, giving us song titles, I refer to it as the metaphysical jukebox.
Yeah. Yeah.
Except I never have to put money in it. They decide when they're putting the money in and when the songs are going to play and how much they're going to play.
Yeah. Yeah. The funny things happen with music and with TV even. But recently, very recently, one of my Reiki students, he's been single for a very long time. We've joked about it. We've both been single for so long. Why didn't we date? Oh, yeah, it's because it's you. And he heard for days, every time he'd be in his car, Brown Eyed Girl would come on. Every time.
Mhm.
He could drive his car to the grocery store, get out, go grocery shopping, come back out an hour later, Brown Eyed Girl would come on. And this morning he called me and he met this girl over the weekend. And guess what? She's a brown eyed girl. So that kind of stuff happens all the time. Usually we just, ignore it, throw it away, don't believe it, whatever it is. But the universe is always talking to us, frequently with music.
Someone wrote, I used to think I was the only one that had the music gifting. Nope. It's really funny when I get going on it because they don't stop. And it's usually like an hour that I'm just hearing songs. But their favorite one used to be when I was first like newer on the path of reopening my gifts, because I've always had my gifts, but reopening them, they would sing You Light Up My Life. They used to think that was hysterical. And I've shared this with some people, but I'll just go ahead and share it with everyone who's watching us. So when I'm not grounded or when I need to plug into the grid, they start singing the Glades plug it in commercial.
Yeah.
And until I stop and do what I'm doing and literally sit for a minute or two and plug in, they just keep singing it over and over and over again. I'm like, this really is not funny.
Yeah. Yeah, but on some level it is funny. I understand why they entertain themselves like that. But sometimes it's a very inopportune moment where I will hear something and it's always at the wrong time.
Mhm. Yeah, and I've told this story before when I was leaving a job. Um, and I was working in a situation where the only time you were ever alone was when you were in the bathroom. So every time I would go to the bathroom, they would sing, I'll let you finish drinking first. They would sing The Final Countdown by Europe.
Yeah, I've had that one frequently.
Every single time, and this went on for, I think I was there 5 weeks after I quit. I'm like, I get it. It's the final countdown.
Yeah.
And then I would just hear them laughing because they thought it was hysterical. So, but I mean, I think that that's something to think about. Maybe it's not something that we've talked about very much, is that guides can be funny. It's not all about being serious all the time or moving us on our path. Sometimes it's just about having fun and playing because that's what raises our vibration enough so that we can move down the path.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. It's pay attention to those
Mhm.
things though. So many people just dismiss them. I know someone who every time she would turn on her TV, a particular commercial would be on every time. And what happened, she lives in LA, she does commercial work herself. But what happened is she finally met that actor.
Mhm.
So you don't always know what the message is
Mhm.
that they're trying to give you. But if you pay attention to it, they usually get clearer unless they're my guides and they like to play.
So yeah, so if you guys who are watching us live have any questions, put them in the comments section. We will answer them. Um, I kind of like this format of every 2 weeks, of doing the show every 2 weeks. So I
Yep.
think that we'll stay with that. And I know one of the things that we talked about, so one of our viewers wrote, I love when I get a heads up to be careful. I hear smiling faces. Sometimes pretend to be your friend. Red flag for me.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah. Which leads to, one of the things that you said you would like to talk about, because a lot of questions for you have come up around this, is how do you know when an animal is trying to communicate with you?
Um, for people who don't know, I did a show, a podcast the other night, and we got on the topic of animals. And you get me on the topic of animals and animal guides and working with, and I'm going to talk for 3 days unless you shut me up. And we got on that topic, and some of the questions that came in, I thought were kind of common that I've heard other people. Um, a lot of the time, well, always, what animals are around you. But a lot of the time, if you see the same animal over and over, it's just because you're crossing paths with that animal over and over. The difference is if you're driving and you see and you have to stop, or you can't take your eyes off of that animal, or for whatever reason you see it here and then you see it down the road and then you see it over there, that's that animal talking to you. They're trying to get your attention.
Yes, we can see everybody's name on the thing, but again, we try and respect everyone's privacy because we have
Right.
people watching it like all over the world. So,
Right.
we usually just don't mention everyone's names, but yes, I can see your name.
Yeah. But that's the difference is or if you see an animal out of season. Several weeks ago, I think we talked about the rattlesnake I had. If something is out of season, that is a message for you. Sometimes it's not necessarily a very clear message. Sometimes you kind of have to research a little bit about what that animal stands for. For many, many, many years, decades now, I have had a family of ravens on my property. And years ago, I had an injured raven that was a little bit too friendly. So I sort of took him in and helped him heal. And he learned to talk. So I'll be outside and I'll hear, hello, hello, hello. And it's the raven. Well, clearly, he's talking to me because he recognizes me. But he has taught his entire family to talk. My neighbors called me in a panic saying that there was some evil spirit in a raven because it was telling her hello. Things like that. That raven brings me gifts. I have people's keys. I don't know who they belong to. He'll bring me keys. He brings me shiny things. Every once in a while, he'll bring me a pebble. And that's not necessarily that he's a guide, but he certainly tells me what's going on. So never underestimate being kind to an animal because they will help you in ways you would never even imagine.
Now, I don't cross paths with as many physical animals, mostly because I'm allergic to all of them in this lifetime, which I find very interesting.
That's okay. They're all at my house.
So we've talked about the fact I can never come visit you. Or at least I can come visit you. I just can't stay at your house unless you want to take me to the local ER. But I have, and it's happened a lot where I have a lot of spirit animals come in. Like, I think it was about a year ago now, I had a giraffe just pop in one day, and I'm like, this is really interesting. There's a huge giraffe standing next to me while I'm trying to work. And so, as the day went on, and I decided to name it Jeffrey the giraffe from Toys R Us commercials. So I called him Jeffrey. He just laughed at me. But it was about taking a higher perspective.
Right.
Because giraffes are really tall and they look down, so they have a very different world view of those of us who are just looking out at the same plane or looking up. So it was really interesting when I thought about like the situations that happened that day about, what did I need to see from a higher level that I wasn't seeing?
Sometimes they will tell you exactly. With my rate, there are three of them. I named them Edgar, Allan, and Poe. Of course, I did.
Of
Um,
course you did.
but I can ask, what vehicle should I drive? And they will all just happen to fly over to one vehicle. I can ask them which direction. From my house, you can go either left or right and get to the same place. And I'll ask what direction, and they'll all go in that one direction. When you start working with an animal guide, even if it's a real physical animal, talk to them. One of our viewers said that they could hear their voices.
Mhm.
If you practice that, you'll hear it clearer and clearer.
Yeah, I have been able to communicate with animals. Like there's one person I used to work with a lot, and she's like, "You are the best animal communicator that I've ever worked with." I'm like, "Yeah, that's not something that's going on my resume. I had enough other stuff on my resume. That's not one that needs to go on." Because I think when you're open and really open and you're a conduit, it, you can communicate with anything.
Yeah.
I think we limit ourselves like it's spirit or it's this or it's that. Or once you're open, everything has a vibration. I'm getting deep. Everything has a vibration frequency. And so we can communicate with anything.
Yeah. Well, and we do all the
Well,
time.
and I think that that's where a lot of my mandalas come from. I just
Mhm.
had a situation where someone hired me to draw some, and I sent them to her. Now she's been in my classes and she's taken them, and she knows that I always draw on black paper. And then yes, I've heard plants, crystals talk to me all the time. Um, and they usually say, I want to come home with you. And I'm like, so sometimes when I'm in like a crystal store, I can put them down. Sometimes I can't. And then those are the ones that I end up bringing home with me. And so she's like, no, can you draw it on white? And I'm like, no, I already created it on the black. And my mandalas don't look as good on white. The colors aren't as crisp.
They don't pop as well on white. Yeah.
Now, for those of you who want to know why I always draw on black paper, one, that's how I learned how to do it. And two, I see the mandalas in space. So to me, they're always in a black background anyway. So that's why I always draw on black. I have some on blue, I have some on green, but I prefer black because to me, the colors are much more vibrant.
Yep.
And that's why I like drawing on black. They really don't look good on white. So it's just interesting.
Each to his own, said the old lady as she kissed the cow.
I have no idea why I just brought that up.
It
Because
was
I don't,
important or something.
I think mostly I'm just wherever they want me to go is where I'm going. Resistance is futile.
Oh,
So,
absolutely it is. Yeah.
although every now and then I do tend to be a little resistant. So,
Yeah. One of my mentors tells me constantly that things will be a lot easier for me if I go with the stream rather than swimming upstream. And I've heard that pretty much my whole life.
mhm,
And I didn't get it until recently.
mhm.
And all of a sudden, actually, it was the middle of the night, I woke up going, oh, okay. But sometimes we are stubborn and don't realize we're being that stubborn.
So one of our viewers wrote, "Divine communication is just that: divine communication with all that was, is, and will be in multiple ways, in multiple realms, or multidimensional realms."
Yep.
Again, it's just about being open. I remember I had one teacher that I worked with. She's like, "I've never seen this before, but you're in like a snow globe." I don't know why I was in a snow globe, but I was in a snow globe and I could just reach up and pull. The stuff that was falling was multidimensional, and I could just reach up and pull different dimensions and then go into them and things like that. She's like, "Who the hell are you?"
Yeah. Well,
And
yeah, yeah, yeah,
you
I hear
don't
that a
know
lot.
for the teacher.
Yeah. Have you recently, this has been happening to more and more and more people, had where you see someone and you're talking to them and then they're not here, they're over there.
Mhm,
And it was just, I've had that happen to me several times lately, but I've even spoken to people who don't buy into any of
mhm,
this. And they've asked me, someone swears she was talking to me at the post office. I haven't left my property in 2 weeks.
mhm,
So what, I don't know who you were talking to. It was not me. So that kind of stuff is happening more and more. It's just humanity growing up.
mhm,
Most other beings have referred to Earth as the planet of the children,
mhm.
and we're kind of teenage now. We're kind of getting a little bit older.
So
So
great. We're in our oppositional adolescence. Fantastic.
I am, yeah. Don't know about you. Yeah.
The other thing, talking about divine communication is just that, is it's really interesting when, and I don't know if any of our viewers have experienced this, knowing who's watching us live right now, I can say probably some of them have, is
Hmm.
when you start to see multidimensionally visional through your vision.
Yeah.
And that's a really interesting dynamic. And most people have seen The Matrix or heard about The Matrix. So lately, I'll be thinking about something and I'll see it like The Matrix. Like I'll see, or like a thermograph, and I'll see where it's hot and not hot and things like that. So it's just really interesting as that sense develops more fully. I mean, I've always had it,
Right.
um, I guess I'm just paying attention to it more because I've been doing so much healing work with people lately. Um, and can I share? Can you want to share your story of your shoulder and who's helping you right now? Because it's really
No, it's really hurting though. But it's yeah, it's pretty bad, guys. It's pretty bad.
so. It's funny because I had never seen this before. Is it okay to share it, Kelly?
Sure, go ahead.
So, two of Kelly's spirit guides, one was standing in the front and one was standing in the back and just like holding her shoulder in place so that she didn't move it. And of course, then Kelly, being who she is like, it only hurts when I do.
When I do this, yeah.
So it's just really interesting.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it's not been my week. Truly, it's not.
again, we're stuck in that energy loop.
Yeah,
It's just like we keep going through things and we keep thinking we're going to figure a way out, and we're not till the energy loop is done.
yeah, yeah.
So,
And I will say, being in pain has kept me from going out and doing some things with people I probably shouldn't really have in my life anymore.
mhm,
So there's always a reason, even if it's a really painful reason, there's always a reason.
mhm. And it's really just starting to pay attention to that and what it means.
Yeah.
So, we've been off on lots of different tangents already. Do any of you who are watching us live have any questions for us about anything? And one of our viewers was talking about crystals and like listening to crystals. And when you do not have crystals in the right place, they get really mad. Or if you
They
have them
do.
paired with something that they don't want to be paired with, they also do not take that very well.
Yeah, I have a cat who really, really, really likes to assist me when I'm doing a crystal grid. And
Mhm,
normally he will not touch them. But
mhm.
I have two particular crystals that do not like each other. And every time I try to put them too close, that cat will jump on the table, take his paw, and very gently scoot one over. And the first time he did it, I went, well, that was weird. And now I'm used to it. And I just know he's going to do it. He fixes my grids for me.
Mhm. Yeah, crystal grids are fun. I love making crystal grids. I have enough crystals probably that I could open my own crystal store.
I'm pretty sure I do too.
Mhm. So it's just funny, just funny. So, questions you guys have. Trying to think if there's anything else that I really want to talk about today. Things that make you go, hmm.
I think a big thing for everyone, and it's not necessarily metaphysical at all, is patience. Right now, because we are in such a flux and we have so many upgrades going on. And I was talking to someone last night and they were like, between the upgrades and the downloads, I don't know if I'm coming or going. And that's kind of what it is. We have to kind of ride out this period of time.
And again, I think it's about not judging yourself because as your gifts start to come back, you really do feel like you're batshit crazy. Let's just put that out there.
Yeah.
You're like, nobody else can, this isn't happening to anybody else. There's something wrong with me. What is going on? Am I really crazy? There's no one that I can talk to about it. So just know that there's always, be careful who you talk to about it in the
Yeah.
beginning. You want to talk to people who are like-minded, or at least you think will understand. You don't want to talk to maybe your friend who doesn't know anything metaphysical. Usually they might then think that you're crazy and then watch you a little more carefully to see what else you might do. I've had that happen before too.
Yeah.
Um, so do you sense downloads like the beginning of the Matrix movie? Um, you know, I get information in all different ways. Um, I think it I think it's funny because I think oftentimes it depends who I'm talking to as well.
Right.
When I'm talking to somebody whose frequency is pretty similar than mine, I become almost like manic and it comes in. Kelly's nodding her head. It just happened earlier today.
Yeah.
It comes in so fast that I can't get the words out of my mouth fast enough. And that's always really funny to me. And it's just like I leave for a while, all this information comes through, and then I'm like, what just happened?
Yeah.
So it happened today.
Yeah.
So that's when we were talking about the loop, and I'm like, oh, we're in a loop. This is what's happening. This is why it's happening. This is what it's helping us do, and blah, 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 blah. And to be honest, I had never even thought about it before that conversation. So yeah,
Yeah.
oftentimes you'll see and sense numbers and letters like rain, and the energy surging was insane. Yep. And I think the most important thing is just to remember that you can ask your spirit team to slow it down. Mine personally doesn't, but
Mine won't either, but you can ask.
you can ask, and if it really is too much for you, they really will stop it. You can say, you know what, I'm overwhelmed right now. Can you slow this down a little? You said download and upload. Please explain the difference in terms of the ascension.
Okay. What is happening is pieces of our DNA are being uploaded so that they can be tweaked and we are back together, essentially, is what's happening. Downloads are normally when they're sending you different changes, different things to your DNA, different upgrades to spirituality, different pieces of your soul that have been floating around in the ethers. People always laugh when I say that, but it's actually true. Anything that has ever traumatized you in your entire life chips a piece of your soul. And usually it's no big deal. You
Mhm.
know, when you reincarnate, it all goes back together. Sometimes, though, if enough of it is chipped away, we need to do what is called a soul retrieval, which is an entirely different thing and would take hours to discuss. But yeah, it's a lot going on right now. Things are being downloaded to the planet collectively,
Mhm.
and things are also being taken away. There are different little pieces. Yeah, defragmenting. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think maybe the other thing that they want us to talk a little bit about is um not sure how to bring this one up. Um I guess I'll put it this way, the temple system of the world.
Yeah. That.
Uh,
Yeah.
Without saying too much, because I can't talk about too much of it
Yeah,
yet. But with and this is part well, here's one of those downloads. So
yeah,
here's partly why it's happening and why we're in an endless loop and where the energy is some of the temple system that was used in ancient times is coming back online. And so we all have to be recoded in order to manage that energy.
right.
Is that a
Yeah.
good politically correct way to say that?
Yeah, yeah, I think you dodged a bullet. There's there's a lot of stuff related to that that we really can't talk about.
You
But
know, and that's one of the things too, and, it's not that we don't want to share that
right,
information with you, I want to be very clear on this. Sometimes the information has to percolate a little bit so that you can see how then spirit wants to work with you to send it out into the world.
right,
Because sometimes it's about things coming online at the same time, so sometimes people get a piece of the puzzle first, and you need to wait for the other. I mean, one of Spirit's favorite things that used to be hurry up and wait. We're going to
still
give
is.
you everything you need. Oh, wait, civilization isn't ready for this yet. Okay, you're going to give me another download. And they say, oh, wait, humanity made a different choice. You can't use that yet. So there's some of that that's going on right now, which is some of the fragmented energy that's happening. I have no idea why I'm talking about any of this. There you go. If anyone has any questions about that, please let me know. The Amazon, there's parts of Africa where there's temples coming online, a lot of South America, a lot of other places that I can't name.
Yeah. Well, there are pyramids and temples being rediscovered every day almost, that have been, overgrown that nature took back. Um, some of them, there's still a big discussion. Is it man-made? Is it natural? Blah, blah, blah. So, yeah, what I always tell people, watch movies, watch the conspiracy theorists, and when they start talking about things or you start seeing things in movies, pretty quickly afterwards, you're gonna be hearing scientists say, "Oh yeah, that was right. Oh yeah, that
Us-
happened."
Usually, movies are I would they when I first heard someone talk about it, they said 20 to 30 years ahead of what's really
I think
happening.
that's a shorter
I
period
would
of time
say
now.
it's 5 to 10 years ahead of
Yeah,
what's happening now. So when you start seeing movies being made, like I think about Stargate Atlantis, and I think about, a lot of the Avenger movies and where the negative forces came in. I think about Men in Black. Um, yes, I love my tinfoil hat too.
yes,
It doesn't really stop anything for me because then I'll
it really doesn't. Yeah, that's
just
okay.
whether I see it, hear it, or just know it, it doesn't. When they want me to know something or when I really need to know something, I trust my spirit team enough that it will come in and it's what I need at the time.
Right.
Sometimes it overwhelms me, to be honest. Sometimes I get overwhelmed by the information that I'm
Yeah,
getting.
yeah,
And it's really important then to have those people who are supportive that you can go to say, okay, this is what I got.
yeah. This is what I'm seeing. This is what I'm hearing. Yeah. A lot of people that never remembered dreams before, and certainly never had visions before, are having those things happening. And if that's you, it's really important to find someone who is open-minded to discuss that with, because sometimes, especially if you're new with this, what you see and what you think it means is really not what it means. So it's a really good idea to find someone that you can talk to about it. And yes, sometimes the information is very helpful.
And sometimes it's like, why did I need to know that?
Yeah.
And what am I
And
supposed to do with it?
yeah, yeah,
Like, I remember when they kept showing me all these medical devices, like to develop all this medical technology. This was like 20 years ago when my gifts, fully started to come back online, and I'm just like, and I don't know anyone in the medical field. What do you want me to do with this information? Like, they
Right.
gave me entire lectures on DNA and what it does and how it works. And being that I never took many science classes, I said to my teacher at the time, I'm like, I see these tubes with balls on the end and these patterns. And I said, I don't know what this is. She's like, it's double helix DNA. Go get more information. And I said, it's really fascinating how they form patterns and change and do things. And this is why we have genetic disorders. And this is where the tears are in the DNA tubes. And this is what we need to, develop to fix them. And she's just looking at me like, what? I go, okay. You told me to get more information. That's what came through.
That's what they gave me. Yep.
And I
Yeah.
still have this old version. It was so funny how it first came in. It was just spinning and moving and changing shapes. And it's like watching like an octopus move its tentacles when
Right.
it swims. And I'm just like, this is really cool. This is really fun. But oh God, I'm going into one of those. um, so yeah. Random company name kept going around in my head the other night, and search has given me nothing. Why? Why am I being given the steel company name? What's the name?
Maybe you're supposed to start that company.
Hmm, interesting.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm off in the ether somewhere.
No, when I was a kid and I I wrote my first book about Halloween. I think I was third grade. I kept seeing a logo of a cat,
Hmm.
Ibby Lane, and I didn't have a cat named Ibby then, and I was certainly decades and decades away from having a publishing company. So sometimes when they give you names or they show you things like that, it's something you should do.
Kelly, did you see the name of the steel company?
I'm ignoring it.
So, Andrea, you may want to reach out to one of us.
Yeah.
Probably Kelly after the show. She can explain to you more than I can of what potentially might be happening. So,
She's
just an
very
interest.
sensitive though.
What?
I said she's very sensitive though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, when we start getting names like that, I think it's also really important to ask ourselves questions as to what the name means. And yeah, reach out to Kelly afterwards. She can explain to you what's going on with that. 'Cause
Because there probably is something you need to do, but not with that.
not with that name.
Not with that.
So, yeah, it's and I think it's important to keep in mind, and let's see if I can do this in a politically correct way.
Good luck.
You know where I'm going, don't you? It's really important when you're sensitive and on the path. Kelly, what's your email address?
Fitzgerald TOO at Yahoo. It's probably better than Facebook, actually.
Yeah. So just reach out to her on her email. Um, is when you're on this path, it's really important to discern who your guides are and which ones are playing with the light and which ones might be playing with the not light.
Might be a little charcoal. Yeah.
So, because when you are a bright light, you attract everything and you attract everything at every vibration. And so it's really important to really be aware and ask questions of the guides that are talking to you. And there's a trick when you're not sure if a guide is fully of the light. You can say, "Are you of the light? Are you of the light?" If are you of the light, you have to say it 3 times. And then if they're not of the light, they have to leave. So
Yeah, and please do that. Please.
so just a public service announcement.
Yes.
Because, oftentimes we think it's fun to communicate and we think it's fun to get messages, but it's also really important to know who's really giving us those messages and what those messages really mean.
That's the thing I run up against doing paranormal investigations more than anything else is someone
I crown shot.
communicating. Sorry. um, is someone communicating with someone who's pretending to be something else. And when I tell people, if you're going to play with a spirit board at home, make a salt circle. Yeah, I know you'll have to clean it up. Yeah, I know it's a waste of salt. It's worth your protection. Say your prayer. Say out loud. Only those of love and light can communicate.
3 times.
Yes, 3 times. And you need to make sure you question those who come through anyway.
Mm-hmm.
You always say, are you of the light? Are you of the light? Are you of the light? And if not, you may leave. You have to leave. You have to leave. And I do that 3 times. Are you of the light 3 times? And then I say, then you have to leave 3 times too, because there's power in the number 3. Do yourself a favor and take precautions. Even if you're brand new and you have a dream where you think a loved one is talking to you, normally, yeah, they probably are, but it's still a good idea to ask for sure. I've just seen too many things go horribly bad. That's the joke among my paranormal group is, it's a 10-year-old slumber party gone wrong. And that's usually what it is. It's usually 10 to 12-year-old girls, and they've usually never used a spirit board before, and they have no idea how to protect themselves. And they just start talking to the other side. And then all of a sudden, things are flying out of their kitchen cabinets. Their parents are fighting all the time, and, the dog dies or something like that. And they cannot put it together. But normally that's what has happened is they have invited something very bad into their house. So don't do that.
Any last questions or things that you want us to cover before we call this one an episode? Thank you for everyone who's watched us live and participated. We are very grateful. If anyone's watching this afterwards and anything comes up, you can reach out to Kellie or myself. We are both on Facebook and we both have emails. Kellie's is Fitzgerald2, TOO @yahoo.com. And then mine, the easiest one would be Gail at gail-alexander.com to reach me. So thanks, everybody. That's going to be a wrap. We'll see you in a couple weeks for our next episode. Take care, everybody. Bye.
Bye.